Excusez-moi, mon colonel. Il semble que, peut-être par excès de prudence, mes collègues continuent à poser des questions indirectes auxquelles vous ne pouvez répondre qu'allusivement. Je pense qu'il vaudrait mieux appeler les choses par leur vrai nom. Et si on veut tout dire, parlons de la torture.
Compris. Et vous ne posez aucune question?
Les questions ont déjà été posées. Je voudrais que les réponses soient plus précises, c'est tout.
Essayons d'être précis. Le mot torture n'apparaît pas dans nos directives. Nous avons toujours parlé d'interrogatoire en tant que seule méthode valable pour une action de police contre une organisation clandestine.
In the summer of 2003, as the US invasion of Iraq went from mission accomplished to an entrenched insurgency, the Pentagon invited officers and civilian experts to a special screening of The Battle of Algiers, the award-winning 1966 classic that tells the story of France's failed attempts to defeat anti-colonial insurgents in Algeria's capital. The invitation to the screening read, "How to win a battle against terrorism and lose the war of ideas." So did these DC big brains learn from France's mistakes and gain a better understanding of what the US would be up against by occupying a Muslim country? Of course they did. And that's why the US occupation of Iraq has been so freaking awesome. For everyone. Especially all the dead people. The Battle of Algiers covers the period from 1954 to 1957, as the National Liberation Front, or FLN, waged a guerrilla war against the French occupation from the FLN's stronghold in the Muslim section of Algiers, known as the Kasbah. One of the many things that made this film so arresting when it was released is that it's considered the first ever docudrama, depicting recent historical events and shot largely handheld on grainy newsreel stock. In fact, the look of the film is so realistic that the producers had to put a disclaimer at the beginning saying that no newsreel or documentary footage had been used. Despite the fairly epic size of the film, it stars only one professional actor, who plays the commander of the French forces. The other 138 parts were played by non-actors picked off the streets of Algiers. One of those was Brahim Hagiag, who plays Ali Lapointe, an illiterate, hot-tempered, streetwise thug who becomes radicalized after being arrested and witnessing the French execute his fellow Algerians. Upon release, Ali joins the FLN, using his street smarts to help establish terror cells to carry out attacks against the French, as well as enforce conservative Islam to rid Algiers of some of the French's negative influences, like alcohol and drugs. In many ways, Ali embodies the Algerian everyman, who's had enough of the indignities of occupation and is willing to die for his country's liberation. The FLN lashes out at the French occupation by attacking the police and bombing military and civilian targets, then melting away into the Kasbah. The French respond with the same playbook that has largely backfired on the US in Iraq and Afghanistan: mass arrests, torture, home searches, checkpoints, and blowing up suspected hideouts, even if civilians are killed in the process. The French military, like the US, makes the same mistake of assuming that because there are only a small number of fighters, they must not have popular support, when actually the opposite is true. They also believe the resistance can be beaten by eliminating a small number of insurgent leaders, perhaps enough to fit on a deck of cards, and are willing to guilt the media into downplaying and forgiving their torture tactics. The Battle of Algiers is admirably even-handed in its treatment of both sides of this conflict. There's sympathy for the outnumbered French police, who are little more than sitting ducks. The French military aren't demonized, but portrayed as men given a job to do, even if it means acting more like police and intelligence gatherers than soldiers. In a famous scene, a group of Algerian women westernize their look to infiltrate and bomb crowded French hangouts. But before the bombs go off, we see several shots of the children and civilians who are about to become victims of the attacks. We also see that the bombers have accepted this and won't let it stop them. But in the end, the filmmakers, and us in the audience, end up rooting for the Algerian insurgents. And really, how could we not? It's the Algerians who are being occupied by a colonial power whose citizens treat the Algerians as subhuman and have created a bubble of opulence amidst their poverty. It's the Algerians who are having their homes invaded, their men arrested, tortured, and executed, and their families threatened or killed as collateral damage in their own country. I'm not sure why the Pentagon thought that watching the Battle of Algiers might provide insight into how to defeat an insurgency, since all the tactics used by the French against the Algerians, the same tactics the US has used in Iraq and Afghanistan, ultimately fail. You can win every battle but still lose the war, and you can't intimidate and humiliate people into giving up their own country. If there's one lesson to be learned from the Battle of Algiers, it's that it'd be better for everyone involved if that occupying country had just stayed home. I'm Jonathan Kim, and this is a ReThink Review.